Equal rights for women. So this social reform was about obviously equal rights for women. Two sisters named Angelina and Sarah Grimke, they were abolitionists from the South. They believed that slavery was really wrong and they wanted to stand up for their beliefs. But they were limited in speaking out to end slavery because in those days, women were not allowed to speak in front of public groups. So they wanted to help end slavery, but they couldn't help spread the word because they were women and they could not stand in front of a public, they couldn't stand in front of a bunch of people and speak about this. And this angered them. So they went on to lead another reform, and that was for equal rights for women. So there was a definite lack of equal opportunity. Not only could women of that time not speak in front of crowds, but they also didn't have the same opportunities for education. Some girls could go to school, but most of them didn't, and getting to all the way to finish high school was very rare for a woman, and going to a university even rarer. When women were married back then, everything they owned became their husband's. So if a woman had a job and she made money, that money was not hers, that was her husband's money, even though her husband was not making that money. So that was definitely unfair. And they couldn't vote. They were not represented in the government. There's that taxation without representation. Well, women were not, they could not vote, so they were not represented in the government. And they also couldn't work in government office, so they couldn't hold any type of job that was within the government. And that's not very equal. And let's talk about some of these other women. So you had the Kremkes, but you also had Lucretia Mott. Lucretia Mott, she also believed she was limited in her ability to stand up for her beliefs. She also disagreed with slavery, and because of that, she believed that she couldn't do the right thing because she didn't have the same rights as men. So she wanted to make changes in America, but because she was a woman, she was never allowed to. And then you've got Elizabeth Stanton. Elizabeth Stanton was married to an abolitionist, and so they were big believers on ending slavery. But she also couldn't pursue her dreams of helping to spread the word of ending slavery because of her gender. There were a lot of other heroes. You've got that led the way in social reform for women's rights. You've got Elizabeth Blackwell. She was the first woman to graduate medical college. You've got Amelia Bloomer, and you have Sojourner Truth. She was a former enslaved worker who announced that women could do anything that a man could. These women were ridiculed. They were told that this would never happen. Women couldn't have the same rights as men because they just were simply not equal to men. But with hard work, years later, because of this social reform and the reformers, women today do have the same rights and liberties as men. And it was because of these women and this social reform, women's rights.